Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. This week's going to be a little bit different as well. We do have a USPSA Grandmaster revolver shooting in the studio waiting to be talked to. He's also a 3D printing hobbyist and an occasional food food poster. Now, with that, if you would, join me in welcoming to the show Jay Slater. How you doing, Jay?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. If you would, go ahead and take a moment and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jay Slater. So if you know of me, it's probably from a couple of things. Possibly the Revolver guy on Instagram, possibly the ELO ratings guy on Instagram, or maybe you've seen me working one of the local majors, or you come to the match I run.
Oh, you run matches. Okay.
A little bit of everything.
All right. So, Jay, the first thing I like to do is throw you right under the bright lights and interrogate you with some very personal and difficult questions.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So if you're ready, we'll start.
Let's dive in.
All right. Question number one. Favorite movie?
I think I'm going to have to say The Incredibles for this one. I like the aesthetic, and I like the soundtrack.
Okay. All right. One of the better animated movies. Yeah,
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Favorite book?
This one, I could give a ton of answers, but I'm gonna try and stick to just one. I've always been a fan of kind of what I consider the golden age of science fiction, which is say like 1960 through 1980, and The Moat in God's Eye is one of the finest science fiction novels ever written. So I'm gonna put that one down. I think I'll put my marker there.
The Moat in God's Eye. Now, what is that?
It is a story of first contact in kind of a hard science universe. So, like a very well thought out alien species and a well realized human society and the consequences of them interacting.
Do we go to war in that book?
Kind of.
Okay. All right. No more spoilers. You'll have to read the book.
Yeah, it's worth a read.
There we go. All right. Number 3 is, if you're a superhero fan, who would be your favorite superhero? If not, who's your favorite historical figure?
For superheroes, I think I would say Iron Man on the basis that he's a builder, and I also like to build things.
And it's science fiction-y kind of thing.
Yeah, like he survives on his brains and the stuff he can make, and I appreciate that.
Okay, for sure. Now, I can't say exactly how you're going to answer this, but I have an idea what the general answer is going to be. Your favorite gun and your favorite caliber, they don't have to be intertwined. They can be completely separate of each other.
So favorite gun, in the safe over there, I have a Webley revolver in 455. So it was never ground down to take 45 and moon clips. It still takes the original British 455, and that's. So I got into guns as a collector more than as a competition guy, and that's I think one of the cooler things in my collection. So it's got like all the classic roll marks from British armories of the First World War. It's dated 1917. It's all kinds of cool stuff.
I was about to ask you how old it was, but you just told me. So it's 106 years old.
Yeah, it goes really well with the number 1 Mark III Enfield. I shot a 2-gun match with that back in 2015 with those two, and that was the first competition. Yeah, no, it took a long time. I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, loading singles out of a pouch on my belt into the revolver. I didn't time out on any stages, and that was my goal.
Well, that's actually impressive then.
And as far as favorite caliber goes, that's a tough one. I like 7.62 by 39 because I kind of see it as the poor man's 300 blackout. You can do anything with 7.62 by 39. You can do with 300 just for cheaper, and you've got to do it yourself instead. As far as as far as recent calibers go, I like my 30. Well, not recent. I like my 38 short Colt because it is kind of like a very classic cowboy caliber that we in USPSA load to levels far, far beyond anything you'd see in the like in a load book.
Now, you just mentioned it's a classic cowboy load. Do you do any of that cowboy action shooting stuff?
I don't. There's not a ton of that around here.
Okay. And you're Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay. You may just end up having to move west. I mean, and now, well, you actually mentioned that you had it. Now, if there was one revolver that you don't have that you could purchase, what would that be?
Does it have to exist yet, or could I suggest a product someone could make?
You could suggest a product. That would be actually very interesting.
So, Chiappa, their Rhino with the revolver that fires from the bottom chamber in the cylinder. That's very clever, and I've heard very good things about it as far as what it does for recoil characteristics. So if I could get one of those with an 8-round cylinder, rather, I'd probably at least give that a try.
What caliber would you want it in?
They make one in 9.
Okay.
Yep.
So an 8-round, 9mm, fires from the bottom revolver.
Yeah, it'd be very soft shooting.
Okay. Now, would you shoot that in competition?
Yeah, I mean, so I am kind of revolver guy on Instagram, but I actually carry a semi-auto. So I'm very well acquainted with the impracticalities of revolver, thanks to my my experience shooting them in practical competition.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you would if they built something like that and you were going to shoot revolver in competition, that would be something you would do.
I'd certainly give it a try. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Jay, I reached out because I saw that you were posting. Let me go. The 2023 ratings for USPSA of all the shooters. And I found that very interesting. But first off, how did you find, you said you started buying guns as a collector. At what age did you start doing that? And then at what point did you find competition and decide to start competing with revolvers?
So as far as collecting goes, that started probably 2013 or so. And like many people in that field, I started by buying a $100 Mosin at a local gun store. And it sort of took off from there. Branching out into various Russian stuff at first, and then the British classic stuff. And then around 2015 or so, I think it was 2015 or 2016, I went to my first couple of matches. I started in two-gun out in eastern Ohio. And two-gun here out east, it's tough to find what I'd consider really good two-gun because all the ranges in like upper Appalachia are really short range. And I like rifles, but I like rifles when you can stretch their legs a bit, and you don't get that much in pistol bays around here.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of. It's hard to find a long range in this area.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for me, I'm Central Virginia. There is Quantico, which holds matches on occasion. But if you wanted to go to a private range, I'd probably have to go to Shadowhawk or the other, I can't think of the other range right now, up in West Virginia or down to Pig River in the very southern tip of Virginia. So there's nowhere local. They're hard to find.
Yeah. And so I guess around the end of that year, 2015 or 2016, I looked at what I could shoot around Pittsburgh, and it was all USPSA. So Pittsburgh's actually, I'd say it's a pretty good USPSA town. We have one of those places where you can find probably 2 matches on almost every weekend of the month when it's nice outside.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got into USPSA shooting production, actually. I hadn't really picked up revolvers yet by that time, and made my way through a couple of divisions in the following years. So it was production in 2017, limited in 2018, and then carry optics in 2019. And I was talking to a friend of mine toward the end of 2019 and saying, I'm going to try, I think, either open or revolver next. And he knew me well enough to write down his prediction for what I would end up doing and put it in his desk. And he pulled it out later when I had decided on revolver and said, I mean, obviously that was what you were going to do. Actually, I've always found revolvers fascinating. Despite their, I'd say, impracticality in a lot of ways, they are cool pieces of machinery. So I picked up a revolver for the first time in 2020, and I think it was until I shot that at kind of like a B-class level through the middle of 2021 or so, at which point I kind of decided, at my wife's prompting actually, to take it seriously and, see if I could get good. And over the next year or so I did. I made it to Grandmaster in the middle of last year, after finishing ninth at Nationals. And yeah, that's kind of the revolver story.
Now, that's interesting. I've never heard anybody say at the prompting of their wife.
Right, yeah.
What spurred her to say that to you?
So in her youth, she was a competitive figure skater and martial artist. So she's very familiar with the concept of taking something seriously, like picking a skill and developing it to the point where you get very good at it. And I never really had any of those. I've always been kind of a dabbler. And revolver I find interesting enough to, to want to practice it obsessively. And so she kind of said, well, give it a try and see what happens.
Now, with your production, limited, and carry optics, what are you classified as with them?
Well, now I'm classified as M on account of the revolver chain.
Right, but
percentage-wise,
what's
yeah.
Yeah.
So when I shoot carry optics, recently I kind of shoot in with like the middle tier A guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm percentage-wise, I'm still down in like the 60s in all of those, but
Okay. All right. And are you? So, what are you shooting? What's your schedule? Your shooting schedule look like this year?
pretty busy. I've got the Falling Steel World Series coming up, along with the Low Cap Classic down in Kentucky. The next, I've got Maryland State's up next, I think in June. I'm working Carry Optics Nationals this year, so I'm going to get to see how I stack up for real against the semi-auto heat.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had seen you practicing.
Right, yeah.
You posted a funny video of loading a semi-auto. So
Yeah. The funny thing is, some of those are faster than I reload them the right way right now. It's on account of limited practice.
okay. Now, what weapon and optic are you using at Carry Optics?
So I have a Beretta 92X Performance. Again, I've always been kind of a Beretta fan as far as semi-autos go. And right now I have an FTP Alpha 3 on it.
An FTP Alpha 3.
Yeah, I think it's more traditionally like an open gun optic, but
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Like a frame-mounted optic more than a slide ride optic. Okay.
yeah. But I got a good deal on it, and I've heard that they'll last long enough. I'm not going to shoot a ton of carry optics this year, so.
Oh, okay. So after Carry Optics Nationals, you're shooting that and then you're working it, right?
Yep.
Okay. I assume at some point you're going to be shooting Iron Sight Nationals
Yeah.
at the same place, actually.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to be there 3 times this year. It's about 3 hours from my door, so I figure I'll take advantage while Nationals are nearby.
That's a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yep. Especially after Talladega, which we drove last year, and that was probably a mistake.
Now, did you ever shoot Frostproof?
I never shot Frostproof now.
Okay.
Actually, the first Nationals I attended was Classic last year.
Okay. How long did it take you to drive to CMP?
It was I think a total of about 18 hours, but we did it in 2 legs.
Holy cow.
Yes,
I didn't realize it was that much farther for you. So
Yeah, it's a haul.
Wow. Because it took me about, I want to say about 11
It might have been, was it?
11
Maybe
hours.
like 16, but still in the mid to upper teens.
That's a drive.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there was more than one of you that made the drive?
My wife came down with me. We
Okay.
turned it like a little tiny vacation. I mean, I was busy most of the time, but she likes solitude, so hanging out around a
Well,
hotel is, yeah.
There's plenty of solitude in that place. Holy cow.
Although we actually found a Mexican restaurant that gets her seal of approval. On her dad's side, she's Mexican, so she's got strong opinions about Mexican food.
My wife's like 100% Irish. I swear she's got Mexican somewhere in her blood because that woman could eat Mexican food every single day.
It's good
It's
stuff.
crazy. I'm like, you got Mexican somewhere in your bloodline because that's just not normal. I don't mind it because I'm
Yeah.
from Texas originally, so I'm
Yeah.
okay with Mexican food. But I would, someone who's pale, white, and Irish, it isn't normally that attracted to Mexican food. So, but yeah, there's not much else going on down there at CMP, so
No.
plenty of solitude. Looks like there's going to be a lot more at Columbus, though. Are you going stag or by
Well,
yourself or?
I've I asked for a single room, and she might come out for some of it, but that's also there's stuff at work for her going on that time of year. So
Okay. Now, what's the third time? You said, oh, I guess the Falling Steel
yeah,
challenge. Okay. And that's coming up, what? That's like next month, isn't it?
yeah, beginning middle of April. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're not going to go out there for the Buckeye Blast and try to win some money?
Maybe, I don't know. My calendar's pretty busy already this year, and I'm trying to not run after every major that comes along. I did that
I
some
got
last year, and I think it was probably a little bit too much.
there's a balance in there somewhere.
Hmm.
So, what do you have going on in between? So, obviously, after Optics Nationals, I assume you're just going to be shooting Revolver.
Yeah.
And
So
are you shooting any matches between the two?
so I've got Area 8, which I'll be shooting in Revolver like normal, and there should be the I-Corps East Coast Regional in that window too. That'll be, I think, toward the end of July, and I may end up shooting open Revolver there, so Revolver with a dot on top.
Okay. Now let's talk about I-Corps because I am not super familiar with it. I'm aware of it, but how does I-Corps differ from USPSA?
So it's more or less USPSA with the serial numbers filed off. The major difference is that it's time plus scoring.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the stages are very much like USPSA stages in design, as opposed to IDPA stages. So typically you'll find a lot of field courses. Yeah, that kind of thing. Not a lot of scenario based stuff.
Okay. All right.
They do occasionally do all steel stages, so it'll just be two on the big plates and one on the small ones, sorts of things. And those are a hoot because you go from the gotta shoot alphas points down mentality to just grip it and rip it on the steel stages, and it's a fun change of attitude.
So how does time plus scoring work?
So they use the NRA Tombstone target.
Okay.
So the middle two rings are the alpha zone for down 0. The next ring out is the Bravo zone for down 1, and they do 1 second per point down like IDPA. And then the rest of the target outside the middle circles is down 2.
Okay. All right. So that's how it works. All right.
So it's relatively punitive actually compared to like a USPSA target where the Charlie zone's pretty big and a lot more forgiving as far as the scoring goes.
So I assume then that the times are slower because you're having to be more deliberate.
Mhm.
Okay. It'd be interesting to run some USPSA matches with those targets and that
Yeah.
scoring. See how everybody slows down, run it. It'd be interesting to set up a stage, like a field course, identical, 2 different bays, one with an I-Corps setup and scoring, and one with USPSA and scoring, and then have people run both to see how they would compare side by side.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do that as a side match sometime this year.
There you go. I like that. That would be very interesting to look on practice score and then compare the two, You also mentioned earlier, and I wrote it down, that not only do you compete, but you now are a match director. So you run local matches or what?
Yeah, one of the clubs around here, I sort of fell into it. I designed a couple of stages for them in, I guess it was 2021, and that was enough for them to kind of start gently shoving me into the role, taking more and more responsibility. But I don't mind. It's we actually have a lot of volunteers, but not the previous match director was kind of there. I don't want to say, I don't want to like be mean to him, but more as a caretaker of the thing than me.
A driving force.
Right. I'm invested in putting on like a good match with like really high quality stages and like something that people will want to come back to, because not just because it's shooting, but because it's really good USPSA.
Yeah, you're a little
Yeah.
more passionate about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Now, how? So you're also an RO. You're a match director. At what point? Because I mean, it doesn't seem like and that you've been shooting all that long, but you jumped right into the deep end. How long did it take you from your first match to go, you know what, I want to be an RO and I'm going to get way more involved in all of this?
But I ended up, I took the RO class in 2020, I think, because I thought to myself, well, I'm not, all that good yet. I figure it's a good way to shoot majors for cheap. And so that was the story behind that. And then, of course, I went and ruined that justification by going and getting pretty good shortly after. And for running the match, that was, again, mostly just seeing a need locally and kind of feeling like I was a good person to step up and fill it.
All right, and is that like once a month or?
Yeah, we do a Saturday match toward the end of the month.
Okay, so what, like next weekend or?
We're not starting until April, but we're the fourth Saturday typically.
Okay. Is the weather where you're at just that much that you guys wait till April to kick it off?
That, and also my volunteer set runs a little bit older, so I like to. I don't know if I could get them to come out for for a March match. But a lot of the clubs around here will start in April as opposed to March.
When does it end? November?
October or November, depending on the weather.
Okay.
Yes,
I can see November being difficult too because you've got Thanksgiving right around the same time, so it'd be hard to have people there. So
Yeah, it's
okay.
usually a 7-match calendar for us.
Okay.